We are recording. We are live. Oh, do I call order? Let's see, roll call. Daniel Krim here, Jen Hanks.
Sure.
Devin Hayes online.
Here,
Yep.
yes, sir.
Okay. Estella Hollander.
Here.
Hi. You out there, Kai? Sam Meyer
I'm here.
and Val.
Here.
Excellent. Preliminary general business announcements by the committee. Anybody?
Everyone, I have a quick announcement or two.
Shoot.
First off, I just wanted to let you all know, I know I talked last time about going to ADOT on my own accord and set to asking them for the light on Steve's Boulevard and Route 66. And I just wanted to let you all know that I have submitted and talked to ADOT about that. I haven't heard anything and I haven't seen the light changing, but I just wanted to let you all know that that was the case. So that's my first thing. The second thing, I had a kind of a question to the committee. I know we talked last week about sending a letter to the editor thanking CenturyLink for those parking spaces. And you guys joked that I should help write a letter to the editor. I did, if you all are interested. And so I was wondering, I wrote a letter on behalf of the advisory council, but I also wrote one on my own because if you guys feel that the advisory council shouldn't write it, I'm happy to send it on my own. But what I thought was, if you're interested, I could share this letter and we could talk about it. I could share it with Martin and we could then talk about it at the next meeting. What do you guys think? And then you can make changes if you wanted to. Unless you feel that it's something that you don't want to do as a committee, and then I'm just happy to do it on my own and then put that little sentence at the bottom that says I'm, doing this on my own accord and not a part of any committee. So.
Martin, what's the rules on that? Are we allowed to author letters to the editor on behalf of the group?
I think so, as long as we, make it a formal agenda item.
Okay.
I'll double check in the meantime. But
Yeah, you want to put it on the agenda for next meeting, and yeah, if you could send it to Martin and he'll circulate to the group and we can.
Perfect.
Thank you for doing that, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Let's get the committee members first, and then we'll go public.
Okay, yeah.
Anyone else from the committee? I do have one quick thing.
I have a
Go ahead.
thing too. Who or how do you report like obstructions in bike lanes? Is that something that we report here or?
Like a vehicle park?
Well, no.
What is it?
So like on Fort Valley Road in the bike lane, like right past the elementary school, there's like big bushes that take up the entire bike lane. And it's really a narrow area there. Anyhow, so I don't know like how that's.
So this is Fort Valley at Sechrist?
Like right south.
You get to contact ADOT.
ADOT.
For that, yeah.
Okay. And then another quick thing, I saw People for Bikes posted like a really interesting statistic that said, 44% more people would be out riding their bikes if there were protected bike lanes. And I did contact them and I'm trying to get that source because they just like had the quote, but they didn't have a source attached to it.
They're like, take that down.
They were very nice. They said they were working on it, but I need to follow up because that was like more than a couple of days ago.
Right.
But it was kind of funny because it coincided. I was out riding with someone and she was like, I really love, when there's protected bike lanes and like even the barriers. And I know the barriers are kind of like a contentious thing, but she's like, I even appreciate when there is a barrier there between me and cars. I told her I'd share that.
Good. But I got one. Can you pull up that intersection? Who brought up the 1980 case that talks about bicycles and crosswalks last meeting? That was you. Okay. Maxwell versus Gossett. On February 1st, 1977, 10-year-old Jeffrey Maxwell was on his way to the Ida Redbird School On his way to school,
Turn it on.
on a bike.
That one's on.
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
Okay, so in 1977 in Mesa, this was a U-Totem convenient market. And this was his school. He was traveling, he stopped here, got some candy, surprise, surprise. Yeah. And then proceeded across this intersection and what was her name? A Mrs. Gossett, Celia Gossett was traveling this way, took a right turn, hit him. And in trial, his attorney won $15,250 for his injuries. So he wasn't killed. And the defendants appealed. And what happened in that appeal was that the Arizona Supreme Court said, we do not read the cited statutes as prohibiting the riding of a bicycle in a crosswalk. We are aware that teachers and concerned parents regularly instruct their children to dismount and walk their bicycles through the crosswalks or major intersections, and that their children just as regularly ignore this sound advice. However, this is a question of general contributory negligence for which the jury was properly instructed. They go on to quote a case from Washington State, which says, a crosswalk is not a roadway. And they basically concluded that, and I think you guys all know the law, that when you're riding a bicycle in a roadway, you have the same rights and duties as a vehicle. But then a crosswalk is not a roadway, and so you are classified a little bit differently when you're at a crosswalk. That's why bicycles are allowed to ride in crosswalks and cars are not allowed to drive across a crosswalk. Or through a crosswalk, I should say. Interesting, the concurring opinion by Justice Hayes, and it's super short. I concur in the result, and the result being that the jury verdict stands and that the 10-year-old was allowed to be in the crosswalk. I concur in the result. However, I am disturbed by the fact that the legal duties and obligations of persons on bicycles are not defined in the law. Some bicyclists ride with traffic, others ride facing traffic, and of course, some ride in the crosswalk. Our statutes give no indication of what is and what is not appropriate. I think this is a matter for the legislature, and I hope that they will take the time to determine what should be the rights and the obligations of those who use bicycles in today's heavy traffic.
That was in 1980, he asked the legislature to do that. I can attest they're still working on it.
Yeah. But really what he's talking about is local municipalities too. As far as the city of Flagstaff, there's nothing prohibiting them from saying bicycles are allowed to ride in crosswalks and allowed to ride on sidewalks, and we do define that from time to time. But I thought that was a good basis, because that's still today what is used to define where a bicycle is allowed to ride. That's still good law. Okay. The old crew is back. All of them.
We missed you guys. Right, Matt? We missed everyone.
And Jim, you had a comment?
Yeah, just real quickly, a week ago today, I was at the National Rail Passengers Association meeting. And the only reason I bring it up now is we had a lot of discussion about not just rail, but ped and bike, and how all these things interact, and how, you know, land use, like density of housing and things like that, can affect rail. And rail can mean, you know, Chicago to LA, but it also can mean, like in Tucson, from downtown over to the university, which apparently that trolley they just added is just like amazingly used. So I'll leave it at that.
Good stuff.
Just, it was a good meeting.
Are we gonna get a trolley?
I doubt it.
Not in the budget set, Mark.
Well, you'll have to have the council.
I think trolley is sort of diminishes the concept if you talk to the rail people. I think they prefer modern streetcar.
Probably so much cuter though.
Yeah, exactly. This is serious. Trolleys
Trying to get tourists.
modern streetcars are serious. Trolleys.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're saying it's used, and they had a representative from the Downtown Business Association. He says since the trolley went in, it's like tripled the business downtown.
Oh, wow.
Because, I mean, I was raised in Tucson. When I was a kid, the downtown Tucson was dead. Nobody went down there. Now, and I drove through it twice on my trip last weekend. It's vibrant. There's people everywhere. So trolley or streetcar, whatever you want to call it, there is a place for that kind of rail. And as I pointed out, you know, head and bike kind of play into all this. So the theme is multimodal. You ever heard that term?
Oh, no, never heard it.
Well, we'll talk about it later.
Tempe also has a version of a streetcar, a modern streetcar. They're really super bright green ones. Just go around Tempe and connect to light rail and other places.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it goes into Phoenix, over into Tempe and maybe Mesa.
That's the light rail, but Tempe has within Tempe a modern streetcar that runs on rails. Do you know the details of it?
Not too much, but yeah, next to like station.
We call it a trolley.
Yeah, it goes like up and down Mill Avenue.
Well, I have to admit, in politics, it's all about framing. So I'll call it whatever you think we should.
Doesn't Durango have something?
They do.
Yeah.
I'm going
And
there
that's, and
this
that's,
weekend.
yeah, that's a similar like mountain town.
Where's that?
Durango, Colorado. Yeah.
So draw a distinction, because like Sedona has the trolley that's just like a bus that is made to look like a trolley, but these are actually things that run on permanent rails
Oh, yeah.
in the street. They're on tracks, yeah.
It's sort of track, it's got a track through town. I think it might just be a train. There's definitely a train going through town.
There's an old steam line.
That might be
narrow
it.
gauge.
Or
There was something for like just getting around.
Just getting around here.
And I forget if it was on rails or if it was just like a cute
A cute
bus or
cute bus. It might have just been a cute bus. I can't remember. They fooled us, you know.
I don't know if this is spoiling anything, but I was looking at the regional plan and there is someone who really wants Flagstaff to have a light rail in the.
Oh, yeah.
They're like really into it. Many comments.
I know. No problem funding
No,
that.
not me, but I've seen it.
They brought it up. I said, ask the new council.
Yeah.
Sarah keeps taking it out, also just sneaks it. It's the power you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Final draft editor.
I went down to Tucson for their annual cyclovia. Does anyone know what that is?
I don't.
Okay, so I don't know. I used to call it cyclovia, but I was told that I was pronouncing it wrong.
All framing.
It's all frame, yeah. It's an annual event in Tucson. I don't know how many years they've been having it. Over 10. They close the streets and they have a big open streets event with food trucks and all sorts of stuff. And people are out riding. It's 2 to 3 miles through the downtown historic area. Super fun. It was 100 degrees. So I will say I melted just a smidge, but it was really fun. Ate some good food. Got a lot of ideas, and we'll be talking with the Living Streets Alliance who puts that on, just to see if we can do anything up in here.
Love it.
Yeah.
Real quickly, I wrote the L tour to Tucson one time. Which is very cool.
I've done both of those things, Cyclovia and El Tour, and they're great.
Any other announcements or items to discuss? Going once, going twice? Public comment, I think we did that as well. Kind of roll those in together. Any other public comments? And approval of minutes. Anybody else have a chance to read the October 3rd minutes?
Thought they were very well written.
I did actually, and I did have one change on those minutes. Um,
Sit here and do it.
So in the minutes, I think, Martin, when I was giving my update, you had talked about me reaching out to ADOT for 3 traffic intersections in the future, and I'm only going to do it for the one on Steve's. Unless I read those notes wrong. I think the other 2 that you had referenced were actually city traffic intersections and not ADOT ones.
Okay, so the correction would be just that they're city intersections and not ADOT?
And so I haven't reached out to the city for that. Yeah,
Okay.
so the only one I reached out to ADOT for was the one on 66 at Steve's. I mean, I've reached out for the ones on Country Club, but that was in the past. So the ones that I said I was going to do on my own is just the one on Steve's, which I did.
The 2 on Fourth are city and you haven't reached out to the city.
That's correct.
Okay, so the mover and seconder, just make the motion with that condition that we make that correction.
With that change, I motion to approve the October 3rd minutes. Do I have a second? We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. You want to take over for the regional plan?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead and call the item and then we'll turn it over to Elsa and Sarah.
New business regional plan 2045.
Do I need to share from here? Or is it sharing automatically? Oh, you're not plugged in.
Bring up the presentation and you can.
So I'm not. Can the folks online see the screen?
I can see it. Yeah, it looks great.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Sarah Dector. I'm the Comprehensive and Neighborhood Planning Manager for the City of Flagstaff. And I first have to explain my arm brace, I was told. So I had a near miss with a truck on High Country. And when I was bicycling, it somebody came over to into the bike lane and got close enough to me that I jerked away. So I wasn't struck, but I bailed out onto the sidewalk and popped my elbow out. So I had a fun ride to the emergency room and a lot of damage in my arm, but luckily didn't need surgery. But yes, I am part of the minor crush report for the month of October. And so that's why. Okay. Thanks, me too. You all know it could have been a lot worse.
Hazardous avoidance, that's what you
I
did.
did. I did a full hazard.
Perfect.
avoidance. Yeah.
Exactly what you were supposed to do.
If the curb had been further away and I'd have had, say, a protected bike lane, then maybe I would have been able to correct without being struck. But you guys know this. I don't need to tell this committee that, but anyways. But yeah, so now you know why Sarah got robo arm. I'm almost done, one more week. So I have been working with Elsa and Melissa Shaw and many, many other staff, including Stella and Martin and Chris and Carlton, have all been involved in working on updating our regional plan. So the regional plan is an important policy document. It's one of the only policy documents the city has that is a direct vote by the voters. Voters vote for the charter and they vote for the regional plan and then they vote for their elected officials. And so that's the direct democracy options right there. So that makes this really important from a public participation standpoint. and getting a lot of involvement in the process. We have been to BAC, I think this is maybe the 4th time with this project, and this is one of the really important ones because we've been working through this visioning process with the community. We've been analyzing future opportunities through city scenario planning and advice with all the other planning efforts that have been underway. We've taken that all through an advisory committee that met for, and I'll talk a little bit about them. And now we have a 60-day public review of a draft plan. So for the last 2 weeks, that document has been online and people have until December 19th to review it and provide comments. This is a required part of this process and also a really important one because it's the first time everybody can look at what could be a draft plan cover to cover. And the exciting announcements is it's 100 pages shorter than our current plan, so you don't have to read as much. Our regional plan committee was appointed by our city and county manager from a list of recommendations from our elected officials. There were about 37 or 38 people nominated to be on the committee, and about 25 said they would do it initially. By the end, about 18. All of these processes have some attrition. But we made sure throughout the process that we had a diversity of perspectives and geographic areas representative both in the city and the county. They held 15 meetings over 9 months, so they worked really, really hard. Their meetings were open to the public. I know some board and commission members came to some of those meetings. They were on various topics, chapter by chapter. And then in September, they reviewed the whole document cover to cover. They gave themselves about 3 weeks to do what the public has about 60 days to do. This 60-day review process started on October 20th, and we have a webinar video that we posted online where we kind of walked everybody through the broad details of what's in the plan. What we're going to present today is more focused on transportation, particularly. Next week, we have 4 public workshops. The one for transportation is on November 13th at 6 p.m. at the Public Works Yard. If you all plan to attend, please let Martin know so he can advertise a quorum. And the ones on recreation, parks, open space, and natural resources on the 14th. The 16th is land use, growth, and housing. And the 18th is about water, energy, public safety, and other kinds of infrastructure. We also have a closing webinar on December 4th where we're going to provide feedback and say, here's the kind of comments, like it's a comment check-in. So here's what we've been hearing so far. And then people have 2 more weeks to send in any comments. I'll talk a little bit about how you can do that going forward. Another important thing to know is in these 60 days, staff is still testing the plan. One of the things that happened with the last regional plan, it was adopted and it didn't really work at the front counter out there for about 2 years. There were a lot of issues that we kept bringing back to council and making amendments that were really driven by staff trying to figure out how to make the plan work. We're trying to spend that time now so that the plan is ready to work on day 1 at the counter, at a pre-application meeting where planners or staff is sitting down with someone and trying to evaluate development applications. That's a really important test of if the plan's working. So staff is creating case studies and we are trying to work through the draft and decide, is it implementable? Is it clear enough? Does it point in the same direction? Does it have conflicting policies? So that review internally is still going on as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention every Friday, if you know anyone who would like to really get nerdy on any of the topics in the plan, we have office hours from 11 to 2 p.m. at a number of places that Elsa has arranged so that we're all over the community and you just stop in and talk to us. There's always 2 or 3 planners there. There are several ways you can get comments to us. I always say if you're a classicist, you can not a classist, but a classicist, you can send in a book report. Read all 200 pages and send me your book report. That's fine. That's what I think of comment letters as for documents this large. But you can also go on the county's Conveyo website that they've created for us. This is an example one that was used for Donny Park, Timberline, Fernwood. And you can basically create comment bubbles. You can read other people's comment bubbles and mark up any part of the plan. There are already 66 comments as of yesterday on this platform, and that's just in the first 2 weeks. So I'm expecting to have a few hundred comments to work through and analyze at the end of this process, and I'm here to solicit more. Isn't that exciting? So The current plan has the issue that I call the mom and apple pie issue, which is everybody wrote their best aspirational statement, and we didn't really try and figure out if there were conflicting policies or how to set priorities among over 500 policies and 90 goals. This plan, from the beginning, we have talked about focus and prioritization. And so there are only 23 goals and 97 policies. And those policies are also related to these 5 priorities. So when we look at things in the future, we will be looking and say there are 5 priorities that then tier to 23 goals and 97 policies. And how are we doing at the priority level? Not just how many boxes did we check in 90, different sentences. So this is a way we're hoping to help move forward this conversation productively. I don't think any of these, I could read them out loud, but I don't have to. The green ones I highlighted are those most directly related to transportation and bicycling in particular. But these aren't a surprise. These have been on every council agenda and every community conversation for the last 3 years. Natural resources and cultural resources even longer. So how the goals and policies move us in this direction and how we deal with trade-offs between these priorities is going to be a really important part of how we implement the plan. So we're taking feedback on that. Do you like these? Probably the one people bring up that you don't see here is water resources directly. But so for instance, we consider water a natural resource. So if we're managing our utilities well, we're protecting natural resources. Likewise, if we are, treating the community, getting our missing middle housing, then we're getting mixed use denser neighborhoods and housing attainability. So the important part about the priorities was not every buzzword needed to appear in them, but all the important concepts needed to be relatable to them. The plan is also organized differently. This draft is organized into 2 sections, a policy section that has goals and policies that in the current plan are kind of scattered throughout the document. But in this document, you get to read it up front and kind of get a whole picture. And then a growth and land use framework. The growth and land use framework is the part that is most applicable to development cases. So the policy section applies when someone wants a zoning map amendment, an annexation, they want to dedicate or abandon some kind of real property within the city. The implementation section is written very specifically not to apply to development cases. It's where we talk about all of the positive visioning and programming that the city is doing in support of these goals and policies. So for instance, there's things like travel demand management, which might get mentioned in a policy, but then it might get more fleshed out in the implementation section. We can't require those things of a development case until we really have code that supports that. Like we don't want to have things apply to a development case if we haven't adopted the things we need to actually consistently implement it. So the implementation section creates a lot of actions and guidelines for staff to get moving on implementing the regional plan. In the policy section, you find goals and policies, which is what we have now in our plan, and land use categories. It's important to know that our current plan has very generalized land use categories. They're not that different in phrasing from our current ones, but the land use categories in the draft plan are parcel specific. So they don't rely on you interpreting the map somehow to know if a parcel should be have a certain category applied to it. That was a good experiment, but it didn't work out in all cases equally well. Implementation guidelines and action items are the 2 parts that are the functional parts of the implementation section, though that section also has a lot of background and information so you can understand it. Implementation guidelines are new. They're assumptions and principles that kind of guide staff forward, and they all start with implementing staff should, and then list all the things that implementing staff should be doing if we're working on projects that fall into that category. And so they're not written for these conformance finding applications. Another thing our current plan should have, but does not, is action items. When the last regional plan was proposed, there were 300 strategies that were given to council. And the Board of Supervisors and Council chose not to adopt any strategies rather than trying to sort through 300 of them because that seemed very unachievable. So taking that feedback to heart, the committee worked with staff to come up with 23 high priority action items. And then there's about 80 other action items that are listed, but are really considered more opportunistic. Like if the funding exists, if the program is there, we want to get to these things, but they're not the priority ones. So 23 feels much more achievable in 4 to 5 years than 300 does. So that's kind of how we're doing it. We also can change out action items in the future when we do our annual check-in on the plan with council and the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we're hoping to make this a more flexible part of the plan, not as rigid or hard to change, but also much more clear about what we're trying to get moving first. This distinctions also shows up in maps. So our current plan has like 30 maps, but they all, you could not tell by looking at our map if it was telling you about a policy or just giving you information. And so that interpretation all throughout the years has been something that's been debated. Does showing an area has a transit line in the future mean we have to provide the transit line? Or does that mean that it's just showing you that there should be a transit line there? So all of these things need to be really clarified. So we have information maps. Those are just background. They tell you about other information. We would like to be able to update those maps administratively. So for instance, every 5 years, Mountain Line updates their transit plan. If they update these maps, we'd like to just be able to bring those maps in and not have to go through a plan amendment process to bring those two documents in alignment. Meanwhile, there is, the active transportation master plan has some adopted policy maps, and we brought some of those forward into the regional plan as well. So those actually tell you it is our policy you have to provide this trail connection. And so we tried to make that a clearer understanding. That's all stuff we can take feedback on. We definitely would like to hear from people on this kind of organization and what it means. So some of the maps that we carried forward with not many changes, and Martin helped with the changes that did need to be made, are existing and planned Flagstaff urban trails. That's on the maps. Planned bikeways by class, enhanced and grade separated crossings. These are all also things that the state statute requires to be in the plan. We have to show crossings. I don't know why. It's interesting. It's kind of feels very fine scale for something that's this high a level of policy document, but that's where we put it. We also have revised the road network illustration, which includes taking out something that was land use related. So the current road network illustration had these things called corridors, and there were commercial corridors and residential corridors. That's really a land use call, but we never mapped where these corridors were. So now things called corridors are parcels that have access to arterials and collectors and are primarily commercial and multifamily on the land use map. And we've just gone back to showing functional classification on this map. And we had some staff ask, could we just not have functional classification maps? Well, no, the state statute says we have to show a functional classification map of roads, period. So it's a legal requirement. So we've just gone back to showing the minimum legal requirement essentially. And then moving kind of the land use transportation interface part onto the land use map. So it's not looking at multiple maps and trying to interpret things. So here's the future growth illustration. And one thing you can know is you can notice it follows parcel lines now. It's not the bubble map as some people called it before. And it does show this darker purple is where we look at corridors. So corridors that have more commercial use. And then our centers are, for instance, in urban, these very dark purples, the kind of the less pinkish ones. And then neighborhoods are the lighter color. So same kind of graduation from brown to orange to dark yellow to light yellow in a suburban area as well. Blue areas are employment or university and research districts, and then green areas are either parks and open space or federal lands and working landscapes. The current plan did not have a category called federal lands and working landscapes. It had a thing called areas in white retain their existing entitlement. Not a very descriptive land use category. But we discussed with the federal agencies and the Arizona State Land Department, like, what should we call these areas? So we have this land use now that we've added, and it talks about the fact that a lot of this land is already regulated by forest plans and planning that ASLD is doing. And this plan doesn't override any of that. However, it also states that there's inholdings and that those inholdings, are not intended to be new subdivisions or to be heavily expanded or have big increases in intensity. One, because it increases fire risk in and around the community. Two, it's very expensive to provide infrastructure that far away from our existing infrastructure. And three, it's just not fitting with all the other services and resources we want to be providing in the region. So that's kind of our justification there. So it essentially says they should retain their existing entitlements, but didn't make them weirdly not a color or make it hard to understand why that context was there. So it's kind of a change that's not a change, but worth bringing up because a lot of our trails and bike access and bike recreation happens out in this federal lands and working landscape. And it talks a lot more about what you can expect to see out here. So please review that section. The other transportation piece is talking about great streets and gateways. We had a lot of discussion on this. The current plan identifies great streets in the community character chapter, not the transportation chapter. And so some folks never looked at it and realized there was transportation information in a chapter called community character. It really doesn't have much policy direction for great streets, just says make them cool, essentially. But we did leverage that information in our planning that we did with the Arizona Department of Transportation to say, what does it take to make Milton a great street or 180 a great street? I don't know that we quite achieved that in the corridor plans, but we brought that to the table and the ADOT policies acknowledge that these are great streets and that they deserve enhanced design. We wanted to retain that ability to have that conversation that these aren't just any old street. These are streets we expect enhanced design on. So we also looked at ones that might be having big capital investments in the next 10 years and other opportunities to maybe move towards a great street system that probably will still need a lot more refinement in the streets master plan. And Metro Plan is getting started on that. We'll have to see how it falls in the scope and what work we can actually afford at this time, but it'll probably either be part of version 1 or it might be an add-on that we work on at some future time. So we wanted to retain it because it gives us an opportunity to create that sense of entrance and definition of place along roads. So I'm going to skip some of these, but please feel free to read through the whole transportation chapter. It's just that there's a lot. I think you'll be happy to see that the transportation systems, multimodal transportation and transit are very well represented. One of the things I was asked the first time kind of a technical reviewer looked at the document is they said, well, where's the level of service in the plan? The words level of service do not appear in this. What metric transportation engineering and planning chooses to use to manage roads has been left open-ended on purpose to give us the opportunity to have conversations about what the right measures for success on a road are and how we should be managing them over time. So if you looked at the current plan, there was kind of this very, I don't know, it tried to be a generalized LOS table. And it talked about if you're urban, here's how you prioritize these different things in street design. We know we're working on a streets master plan. That's the kind of thing we should be getting from that document and not this one. So we set big goals about safety and connectivity and the idea of providing travel demand management and moving transit priority up in our system, but we did not say, and here's how you set the level of service for those. So just no, silence on purpose, worth telling groups that would be looking for it. We also, in the kind of expanded on great streets in a way. We said that's a good idea, but what we really care about is streetscapes and parking, which is a big part of every streetscape that's not an arterial in our community. And so we have some language that I think is supportive of having innovative street spaces, but not necessarily saying, and here's how we design it on every piece. So we talk about supporting temporary street events and alley activation, providing bicycle and micromobility parking, centralizing ADA parking in districts like activity centers or downtown, and then thinking about parking management beyond just the existing park flag area, not only from a transportation standpoint, because the legislature is moving in a direction in the last few years and very likely will continue to, of restricting our ability to require more parking when new housing units are built. And that is ultimately going to start to shift more of our parking needs onto street parking, even more so than today. We did a bunch of research on the parking standards and especially winter parking. It's after November 1st, it's snowing outside. But we looked at the winter parking standards of other cities that have similar snowfalls. We are the top 2 in restrictions. Burlington, Vermont and Flagstaff are the only place with winter-long overnight parking restrictions. The other 30 cities we looked at had a variety of winter parking management strategies, including like odd even days and just telling everybody to get off the street 48 hours in advance and things along those lines. We will have problems if without the on-site parking that we have been requiring, if we aren't re-looking at that policy seriously in the next few years. And it's actually one of the priority action items. So that could impact bicycle winter experiences too, if we're allowing the on-street parking in the winter. It could affect how things get cleared. It could affect, how many people are pulling out. So that's something that you should be aware of as the BAC, that came out as something we need to take a look at. And it's a conversation you should be engaged in when we get to it. We also in transportation have airport and freight and rail guidelines. Multimodal and transit services to the airport are listed as a priority for the airport, as well as other needs that the facility has as a regional transportation hub. So as I mentioned, evaluating methods of snow removal to allow for year-round on-street parking and multimodal travel is one of our high priority action items in transportation, as is completing a streets master plan, or whatever we title it in the future. We'll update that if needed. And then for the county, establishing a reliable rural transit service, which is something they've been talking about with Mountain Line and talking about how to fund with Mountain Line, is their top priority. I always like to tell people there's this web of interrelated topics in the plan. So even though we're here tonight talking about transportation, all of these policies were looked at in this broader concept of the cost of development, housing affordability, how they impact growth and land use, and how they impact recreation experiences, infrastructure that might be related to roads and streets. We've kind of been looking at all of those all at once. So while there's like a standalone chapter on implementing our transportation goals and policies, that is not the only place where that is impacted from one end of the plan to the other. So I always encourage everyone, don't just look at one section and think you read the plan. It does have information throughout. And like I said, 100 pages shorter. So hopefully 1/3 less time reading it. Are there any questions for me? I'll put this away so we can see people. That was my very fast review of a good long document. Let's go. Sorry.
Yeah, and where's the draft located now? Where can we see the draft?
Yeah, it's online at flagstaff.ez.gov/regional plan 2045. So you can look it up on the website. It was, I think, did we send a staff report, a memo out, Martin?
Yeah.
The link was in the memo as well.
Okay, it's on the agenda as well.
Yeah.
There's a link to the overall webpage. Yeah. The regional plan and then a specific link that will call up that PDF document.
I had
one
kind of a,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, it was just a readability question. So I was reading through some of the chapters and there are certain terms like road diet that you also used that I wasn't sure if they are defined in the document or if, like you said, they're defined in a different section. Is how are you trying to manage that? Because there are a lot of concepts that I noticed in the transportation section that probably merit defining, and I noticed some of them were defined and some weren't. And I couldn't find them elsewhere, but I will be honest, I didn't read all 200 pages yet. I'm about 100 pages in.
Oh, well, this is a question that deserves a demo. So when you land on the page, this is what it looks like. And when you click this cover of the plan, it takes you to. Oh. Does it sharing?
Might be TV then.
I'll try one more time. Let's share again. Let me just share the window. Watch out. This is gonna do that weird mirror thing. Maybe. Okay. Sold. Okay. So when you arrive, you land here, you can click on this and it'll take you to a site where you can mark it up and comment on it. It also, if you don't want to read the 200 pages, you can click on some of these things, like this will give you just the goals and policies. There's also an interactive map if you want to take a closer look at the future growth illustration. And we do have some of these resources in Spanish. But when you are on this page, if you click the one that says chapter 10, you'll notice it also says references and appendix, and that includes the glossary. So let me hop down on this one. I'm just going real quick, but ooh, it also is chapter 11. Let's see that in the pull down, but it's true. So when you get through these chapters, roughly, it's going slow. Sorry, I can't get the bar because the screen was covering it. You get to this references section, and this should have, first it has our bibliography. This plan has a bibliography. Unlike our current plan, I'm a stickler about a bibliography. If anyone's ever applying for an internship with me, if I ask you for a writing sample and it doesn't have a bibliography, I won't hire you. It is not, but we do have a glossary of terms. So if you think we have missed, we tried to be a little light on the terms because sometimes they are defined somewhere else. Like there's kind of an industry standard definition, or maybe it's defined in the zoning code and we didn't want to put a definition here in case the zoning code changes. But you can definitely comment that like, hey, people don't know what a road diet is and it's not in your glossary, but maybe it is. Oh, look, road diet's in the glossary. So
Perfect.
when the plan is finished, all these definitions will be hyperlinked. So road diet appears, you can click on it and it'll take you to the glossary to find the definition of road diet. This is going to be a document that's designed to be used online and not designed for your print copy. That doesn't say we're not going to make any print copies, but they won't be as functional or usable. So
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and the bibliography. So
yeah, thanks. Elsa did a lot of bibliography work this year.
Yeah, just kind of thinking of the topics that we've been discussing in the BAC. Like often we run into like right-of-way issues with if streets need to be widened and then therefore we have to like reduce the bicycle lane or not provide the appropriate type of bicycle infrastructure because it pushes us out of the right of way. And as well as like maintenance, like the issue on Butler and wanting to take away the protected bike lane due to snow removal maintenance. So are there items in there to kind of help protect, like have those protections and kind of, yeah, move the needle on bicycle infrastructure and maintenance?
So what we have, those are kind of things that are really implementation guidelines, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like how staff has the conversation. And what we have is these, let me get them kind of centered on the page. And you can see there's a pretty robust set of them of making sure we're providing access to safe and convenient options for everyone, evaluating opportunities to convert vehicle lanes into bicycle infrastructure, micromobility zones at transit, provide and design of quality infrastructure for vulnerable road users first. We had a lot of debate about what's a vulnerable road user at the committee because they were like, well, if you're an elderly driver, are you a vulnerable road user? And I'm like, who's vulnerable there? The driver of the vehicle or the 20-year-old pedestrian on the sidewalk? Like, it's actually the pedestrian that's vulnerable. So, I mean, we have moved to a lot of that vulnerable road user language and talk about safe systems approach. And then we talk about the need to update not only our engineering and design standards, but provide for alternative intersection designs for where we need those safety issues to be addressed. So I think the focus on safety and not on mobility, not that mobility is set aside completely, but there's a lot more emphasis on safety and connectivity. And I think that's the best anchor for that decision making. That's what the streets master plan is going to have to look at. And when we're evaluating that document, did we achieve that? Are we providing enough of those things? And I mean, the bike lane on Butler is a good example of how some of this more aspirational planning can lead to that, right? Because when we did the Southside plan, we said, well, what if we don't get any money and we can't afford to do much? And so we put in but we have a safety issue here. And so Carlton designed one that was buffered. And then we said, well, what if we did get money and we had lots of money and we could do something that would really be the top designed idea? And we said, well, we'd get it above the curb. And so we drew a drawing of that. And so we went through A, we tested A, it didn't work, and B is next. And I think that that's the kind of thing that these aspirational statements about what staff should be doing can guide us in that direction. It just doesn't get you there in one bite most of the time. And I think we tried to be more realistic about that some of these bites have to be code updates to be effective. And they have to get into a master plan that actually guides all of our street design, which means, you know, with the street master plan and other things, you know, we've always just adopted the MAG standards. We've not tried to do that design work on our own for our community. We said, we'll just make variations of that as we go. So this is our 10-year period where we're making big leaps in that direction. And this is the material that would guide that. Would you add anything to that, Chris?
Not at this time. I think
Yeah.
you did a good job, Sarah. Thank you for that. That was great.
Yeah, so look at this. Tell me what you think. Get in here, mark it up. Some commissions and committees are choosing to like create a commission position or comment letter. And some are choosing to do it individually. And that is, I think on your agenda, that's probably where I'll step away and let Martin come back and lead the conversation. But that is how you would like to provide comments is completely up to you. Me and Elsa are happy however you would like to, but you know, I think last time I was here, I said, don't give me commission comments. We're not there yet. Now give me commission comments if you want to. Give me committee level comments. And the Transportation Commission did get a presentation on this last month, and they did agendize it again for their December agenda, or they asked to, so.
We had kind of started that discussion online, Martin, about what we would do to provide feedback
Yeah.
as a group.
Yeah, I think maybe your first decision point is, do you want to provide comments individually, or do you want to provide it as a group? And if you want to provide it as a group, then we have to talk about process a little bit, because comments are due December 19th. Your next meeting is December 5th. So we probably have to think about doing a little bit of work in the meantime to be ready for December 5th, to have a robust conversation at the meeting. I wasn't paying enough attention to the Open Spaces Commission when they went through all this, but
Oh, yeah.
they went through a couple different options. I think they ended up hiring 2 interns and.
No. So we sort of thought everybody we thought everyone would use the subcommittee process in the board and commission manual, because that's like there and available to them, to all of you. And then also other people would just say, everybody provide individual comments. So that's kind of how we thought it would go. But open space was so creative, and they came up with a third way to do this, which is they appointed one person as their draft letter writer. And that person is writing a draft, meeting with us and having discussions, and then they're gonna debate it at a meeting and make edits to it and then make it
Wow.
their letter. But they had somebody who's super motivated. So if anybody's as motivated as Bruce was, then like, that can be an option too. But if everybody pushes away from the table, maybe not.
We're a pretty motivated group. I don't know how far that goes though.
So let's say we have three options that don't involve
Yeah.
hiring interns and renting.
Yeah, yeah.
offices. One is we could find the Bruce character among the BAC members. Two is we could have a subcommittee that meets and kind of formulate some ideas to bring back to the committee in December. Or three, we could have a special meeting sometime between now and December just to review, where everybody on the committee would have an opportunity to participate. Or we can bring it back to December, but then we're kind of under the gun to finish the comments at that meeting.
I'd like to get some thoughts.
I'm happy to be on a subcommittee or be a Bruce. Do not bring me down.
I'm down for a mid-month meeting too.
Like a working meeting or maybe go, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, everyone, I'm sorry to say this, but my schedule from now until December, I'll be in the December meeting, and then, of course, I get another knee replaced the next day. So
Oh,
my
wow.
schedule's pretty tight as far as additional meetings go for the month of November. So, but it doesn't mean you guys can't have it without me. So
Thanks for letting us know that, Kevin.
How many can meet without quorum for?
Great. And if we have a mid-month meeting where everyone is invited, we need only publish that for a quorum. Then if we do that, then you have to have four. You can't have three. You have to have four to make it a real meeting.
I could come to a mid-month meeting. That would add another person.
Okay, good. Yeah, me too.
So I guess I'm okay with
To clarify,
any of the
when-
options. If someone wants to take ownership of this and then we come back together and review it, that's great. If there want to create a little subcommittee, that's fine too, but.
And there could be combinations too, like somebody, if somebody wants to be the Bruce, they could. It's becoming a term now.
He really set himself up for that.
They could, get information ready ahead of time and, be prepared at that mid-month meeting. Again, to kind of make that discussion more efficient.
Yeah, that might help us. Sam, were you saying something?
Yeah, when's mid-month?
Right now.
Not Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think it would be like at the earliest the week after next, I would think. Does anybody have a calendar? What does it?
I do.
That's like the 18th to the 22nd.
Yeah,
21st.
that's the week before Thanksgiving.
There's the week before Thanksgiving, and then we meet the week after. Is that how the weeks go?
Mm-mm.
No, Thanksgiving's the very end. Yeah, this month.
So there's 2 weeks before Thanksgiving,
Okay, after next week.
after this week.
So, yeah.
It's two more than.
Yeah, it could be the 14th or the 21st.
Wednesday.
Following is Thanksgiving. And then we meet after that. Okay, so there's 2 weeks before Thanksgiving week that could be on the table. Kind of seems like the 21st might be.
But isn't that?
Mid-month would be one of those 2 weeks, then. Thanksgiving or the week before.
Another option is everyone on their own, if you want, like read through it and then come prepared for the December meeting with comments and we talk about the comments. We're getting busy before Thanksgiving.
Well, I'm just thinking, what would that look like? Would that put that on you, Martin, to compile all of our comments? I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I'm willing to support that way, yeah.
We have room on the agenda in December.
Yeah, that's true.
Does it look like?
Yeah.
There's already a lot of things on there.
Yeah, we also can meet.
That's gonna be
The
great.
one thing we have to get through in December is that we should at least get started as a capital plan. That's the one time sensitive one. But that could be a good part of the meeting, is the capital plan. So yes, time would be tied in to do this in the summer.
So the 21st?
Are you,
I vote.
are you guys available on the 21st? Just gonna look over there. What do you got?
I'll look at over there.
I can send out a poll tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A poll would be helpful, yeah.
So we'll consider maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday that week.
okay.
If somebody really wants to meet on Monday,
I have to run through the Heritage Preservation Commission on Wednesday, so Elsa could come maybe, but I couldn't.
and I'm guessing we don't want to meet on Friday, but
And the purpose of this is as a group, we go through the plan together and like create comments, right? That-
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're gonna come prepared to discuss it.
I think come prepared is
Oh, come
helpful.
prepared.
Yeah, make it go a lot quicker.
Right. Otherwise, we'll be here for 5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, I prefer the 19th or 20th. Tuesday or Wednesday.
I'll be out of town on the 20th, so 19th's good.
We're looking at
That's
the
Tuesday.
19th now. Look at there.
Everybody there has to have.
That works for us.
The subcommittee.
It'd be the same time, 4:30.
Be declared.
yep, it'd be
So you have to
advertised.
commit to 4 people or more, or 3 or less.
Correct.
19th looks good for me. Sam, how's the 19th looking for you? Oh, you said
19th
that's
is
good.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you said you're
19th
traveling the
good.
20th.
Yeah, 20th, 21st bad.
Well, let's almost do a show of hands for the 19th. It's gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, Sam, 5. 20th? You went for the 20th?
My calendar's over there. So I don't know.
Babysitter.
Yeah.
Or we can go back.
Let's do a poll.
We can do the, yeah, I'll send out.
That would be. I think Sam said she couldn't do the.
She's got a couple of years before you can do that.
Right.
And she's our
Check
Bruce.
my calendar.
Right, so we know.
Tried all of those things. You're so good.
Saw this, right?
Yeah, she's doing good.
Okay, is that kind of consensus? So
College.
Yeah, the 19th.
Sam will be Bruce. We'll send out a poll probably for the 19th. Tentatively for the 19th, and then we'll finalize our comments on the regular meetings
Or
in
we
December.
come with comments on the 19th, right?
Or if we can finalize them then.
Hey,
Yes.
Martin, speaking of being Bruce, do you want me to take notes at that 19th meeting? I'm actually extremely good at taking notes. So,
I'm sorry, can you say that again, Sam?
yeah, do you want me to take notes on the 19th? I'm very good at taking verbatim notes, and then we could use that to synthesize into a letter.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, for driving that.
Anything else?
No,
Any other advice for us?
just know that the 19th is a council meeting, so you probably can't meet here.
Dark sky it is.
That's a meeting worth advertising.
Council meetings on the 19th. Oh, you're talking this one.
This month,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
You still have to be there.
Yeah. So the new council takes over December 17th.
We could use one of the other rooms, right?
Can find them.
Did we decide if it's gonna be an actual meeting or is it gonna be a subcommittee?
Oh, we have 5, so it'll be an actual.
Okay.
And none of this precludes you from commenting as individuals. of
Correct.
course.
Jump on the Conveo site and mark it up if you want. Before or after your meeting, whichever you like. Easier said than done.
Hey, thank you, guys. You've done a lot of work.
Thanks. Elsa especially this month. Thanks. Great, well, you know where to find us, right next door to Martin, if you need anything.
And I'm happy to provide any assistance in advance. Reach out to Sarah and Elsa as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so good night.
So the key.
Feel better.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. Feel better. Almost there. Now I just have to not fall.
Oh, good luck with that.
On the next item, we good? I thought this group would be up for it. Kaibab Lane pedestrian and bicycle access.
Just a quick update. Does everybody know where this is, or should I bring up a map? You all know where it is. You know the issue with it?
No, I need a map, please.
Okay.
I'm terrible.
That room with the there.
There's always a dog at that one house.
Yeah,
Maps make it all better.
it helps me a lot.
Okay. So here's Milton, Route 66. This is the student housing. Mill Pond, here's the railroad tracks in the north end, oriented. This, I'll zoom in a little bit. This road is called Kaibab.
Oh, I saw that on the bikeways.
Yeah, and so this part of it is goes through an industrial area and it's public, and the public part of it ends at this cul-de-sac. It's still called Kaibab where it goes through Mill Pond Village, but it becomes private. So a number of months ago, the owner of Mill Pond was having some of the roads redone, like some of the asphalt repaved or whatever. And for construction, they put a barricade across the road at Chateau.
I had to go buy.
Chateau.
And then I went.
It's aspirational. So when the road was closed off, lo and behold, they noticed that there was much less traffic in the neighborhood, vehicle traffic, right? And so the owner decided to make that barrier permanent. So in the meantime, we contacted, and we've gotten all kinds of emails because when the road is closed off, this happens to be a really useful shortcut for people. And if you look kind of in the bigger picture, if you're not using Kaibab, there's really nothing else besides Route 66, which has a shoulder, but is not super comfortable for most cyclists. And this also kind of took you into La Plaza Vieja and like help get you into the central part of town. So the fire department has contacted the owner. The gate violates fire code, but it can be resolved if the fire department has access via a key. So they're going to do that immediately. In the longer term, the owner wants to put a sliding gate on it, so residents will have access to use it. We haven't done it. I wished I had more information for you tonight, but we're trying to get in contact with the owner to see if they're willing to leave a pedestrian bike opening 4 feet or 5 feet in the gate. One option is if they're willing, we can negotiate an easement to allow ped and bike access through there on that street. If the owner's willing to do that, which would guarantee more permanent access for peds and bikes. And even though it's a private street, we'd be able to use it in that fashion. I really have no idea without having talked to the owner if they're amenable to that. They seem fairly easy to work with. I don't think that they've identified bikes as the problem. It was more vehicles cutting through. Usually bikes cutting through a neighborhood doesn't cause a lot of problems. The city has some funding, would be able to pay for that easement, which would be, it's a right basically that we're purchasing that we would obtain, and it has a value. So we could do that if that's what it takes. And that's all I know for the moment, but stay tuned. Hopefully we can. get it
Martin,
correct.
this is Kevin. I just want to say thank you. That's great. I'm currently on Route 66 3 days a week from FAC trying to get back to that area, and it is not a fun ride for sure. I actually, yeah, it's a dangerous commute for sure.
Yeah, it's been a number of years that we have identified that it's lots of bikers are using it. We can go through there. It's kind of natural to see why, but and when it was closed, we get a lot of emails about it.
There's something in, I think, the regional plan or somewhere like not allowing gated communities. And what, couldn't you argue that this then becomes a gated community? So then therefore it goes against code and it's not allowed?
We can check if it's in the regional plan, it's not necessarily code. So the only time it could be enforced is if they needed some kind of discretionary review or action from the council.
The engineering state. I feel like somewhere where they don't allow gated communities in Flagstaff, right?
Oh,
Oh.
except for the golf course.
Right, we don't have any gated community.
Pine Canyon.
Oh, it is. That's, yeah.
Well, Pine Canyon, but it's open, like during the day.
Right, I don't think.
So
thought
I
they don't
think
allow, like,
the
gated,
policy is definitely against
yeah.
gated communities. My question is the other end open? So if the other end is open, then it's not a gated community.
I'd say partially gated.
Which was the fire code issue because they didn't have a second way out.
Oh, I
So
see.
we had one
Fire
access.
code.
Yeah.
I hope they're open to the easement, because that would be
Sweet
really
talk 'em,
awesome.
Martin. Sweet talk 'em.
Do our best.
And I mean, from my experience, the bikes, the way that they have, oh my gosh, what's it called? Speed bumps. The cars and the bikes go the same speed, so there's not a speed issue or, anything like that. It's not like there's a mismatch. We're not gonna cause damage to the roads.
One bicycle with the really loud radio. West Coast rap music.
Yeah.
I don't think he goes through there. I do kind of love that guy.
That would be a really convenient solution.
Really West Coast.
I do. It's not trap. I don't know what it is.
Like reggaeton, like.
All right, hopefully more news to report in the next meeting.
This can't be right. Like, there must be some way. Fight it.
I mean, our long-term
Yeah.
plan was there was a foot straw that went around that side. There's no short-term way of doing that that's tied to the Rio and
That can still be the long-term plan, even if we do an easement. Because, this is directly affecting people now.
Right now, there's the
Specifically me.
gate, but you can go around the gate.
I stopped trying. They made it too hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They chased it into the trees and up to backyard fences.
Because I did this a few weeks ago and it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, for a while I was moving the fence and I was going
There was no
around
fence to move it. I just went onto a little bit of single track and went
Yeah.
right around it. Or a little path.
To go through.
which is likely
All the way
development since the.
Yeah.
Yeah, like every few weeks they would make it.
Maybe I just got lucky and
Yeah.
part of the fence was down or something. Yeah.
But no, I gave up and started going another way.
How high is it? It's high, like
Yeah.
6 feet or something.
You can't go.
You can't go.
Okay.
You can't throw your bike over it.
Right.
On the fence.
Yeah.
And you can't climb the fence because it's not actually sturdy.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's not held up with posts that are in the ground. It's just tied to trees and.
Yeah, they don't seem super
Yeah, could you
committed to
tell?
the fence.
Yeah, they really committed to it. But maybe with the possibility of money.
Yeah.
Helps.
Yeah.
So would this is something in the engineering code that would need to be updated to like not allow this ever? There's no authority because it's a private road. Or like what needs to change so that this can't happen again?
I think so. It would, I mean, because it's a private road,
Yeah, just
you know, those restrictions could be in place. So it could be, I mean, imagine there could be something in the engineering standards that talk about.
if it connects to a city road, you can't block it or something like that.
Yeah. I think there've been discussions about the nature of private streets. When you think about it, a private street is the homeowners who live there have to pay for maintenance and upkeep and replacement and so on. But they're paying the same taxes as everybody else who have their streets paid for by the city, by taxes, right? All that maintenance and snow removal and upkeep is paid for. But if you're private, you pay for that separately. Usually private streets go in because developers don't want to build it to a different standard than the city standard. It's going to cost less money, but then that cost is just passed on to the homeowners in the process that I just described. They have to pay for maintenance and upkeep. So we changed the standards to require private streets to be built public street standards. But it goes to a further step to review. Do we want to have a policy or regulation of when private streets can be used and when streets have to be public? I think that the previous standard change where they have to be built to public standards encourages, there's no reason not to build public streets. There's no short-term financial benefit to building private streets, so that might have helped. There's also not really a clear definition in the code between what is a driveway and what is a private street. So it leaves open the possibility that developments can just call things driveways and not have to meet that standard.
And do you know?
It's a bit of a rabbit hole. Sorry.
No, I hate that so much. We need to how do you define a driveway?
I think if you look in the code, I'm sorry if I brought this up before. It literally says under the definitions that a driveway is not a private street and a private street is not a driveway. Discuss.
I wonder if the property owner would be interested in giving it back to the city to take that maintenance on.
No.
Like maybe that would, I don't know, but I don't know if the city would want that, but.
And if it meets the standards, because it's pretty narrow. I mean, it's almost like I don't want to be the one to define a driveway.
Yeah.
Right, there's not
I mean,
a
it's-
sidewalk.
It's narrow, but we have narrow streets. Those look like they might be sidewalks, but they're not. It's not cool. It's 25, 26 feet.
Okay.
That code?
It's fire code, but it's not an existing cross section.
Yeah.
But we have taken over other planned to be private streets that are public. Most of Presidio is an example.
I think there would be a lot of neighborhoods that would be interested in having their private streets taken over by the city.
More snow plowing for you.
They'd have to take out their speed bumps.
Just redid those.
Want to go on to the next one? You got about 10 minutes before your bus leaves.
Okay.
Foxland Street traffic calming. This is your neighborhood, right?
It is,
Have
yeah.
you fixed it?
We haven't. I wanted to bring this back. I know we had a good conversation about the traffic calming plans at the last meeting. And I think we might have talked about it then, but your meeting was the day after the Transportation Commission met. And the Transportation Commission specifically indicated that they want to make sure that there's good bike accommodation, even with the traffic calming. But they did not have the benefit of the comments and the discussion that you had the night after. And really the project is kind of moving forward without some of the addressing some of the issues that we talked about. So really two things I wanted to bring up, give you an opportunity. One is, do you want to kind of let the Transportation Commission know that just the timing worked out very poorly in this case, and they did not have the benefit of your discussion before they considered the traffic calming improvements. And then, second, we have not really done great on designing traffic calming infrastructure that supports bicycling. And I think of Boulder Point, and then even Fremont, believe it or not, and then this one. And so there's kind of a secondary role of how do we do better at designing traffic calming that better accommodates bikes. And so I put it on here. It's really up to you, but if you want to kind of let the Transportation Commission know about these concerns, if there's an opportunity for it. It's, again, it's up to you. It'd be those two things. One would be this awkward scheduling where you meet the night after the Transportation Commission. The other would be more specifically content on traffic calming and bike accommodation. Again, totally up to you.
One seems like a little bit of a systemic problem, that scheduling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna happen every single time, right? Well, I see that on the next agenda, we talk about the 2025 meeting schedule.
Yeah.
Would that be a good opportunity to fix that issue?
We
Just
could,
for
I mean, one thing we could change our schedule. Yeah.
We supposed to advise the Transportation Commission?
Yes.
So I always thought they should be the third meeting and not the first week. Like, great, shouldn't they be on the third week? I always thought that was weird. But they can
Yeah,
listen
I
to
agree with,
AC and PAC.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's not the first time.
I think it's worth, no. And I think it's worth saying something to the Transportation Commission just to jog their memory, to be like, hey, this has been a longstanding issue and it happened again.
Or we meet Wednesdays and they meet Thursday. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it always seems weird that they meet before us, yet we advise them. Or like they should take our opinions into account.
Yeah.
So it could be, and there's PAC as well. PAC meets the week after. So it could be like, Wednesday, Thursday. So Wednesday one week, Wednesday the next week, and then Thursday. Because we don't have to
Yeah.
figure out how it works, but there might
Discuss
be
it.
options.
The next meeting.
And then you were saying that we have an option to get our comments in front of them at this point in time, or? I didn't quite follow.
I think if you sent them an email or a letter, we would let them know that, about this particular issue that you have concerns.
Yeah.
That answer the question?
Yeah, I'd like to say I would love to hear that as well. I think it would be great to let them know we have concerns, and I guess I wondered, Martin, in the future, I don't know, I guess you're right. They meet before us, but would there be a way that we know if we didn't change the schedule, like for the December meeting, right? They're going to meet the day before, the same day, just hours before. Is that right?
It should be the day before.
The day before.
They
And
meet
so-
on Wednesday. Yeah, they meet on the first Wednesday. We meet on the first Thursday.
Right. And so we as a committee could like we talked about it last week, and had we known, I guess, that they had made decisions without our input, we probably would have had input and could have sent that to them last meeting, right? You know what I mean? Because we had a good long conversation about it where we actually were looking at design ideas, weren't we?
Yes.
And so,
I
You know,
think to do that, we would have had to had that conversation in the September meeting. We may not have had the information or been.
okay.
may not
So
have
I
been-
guess what I'm getting at is if we had that information last meeting and we then made a decision and sent it to them in that last meeting, you're saying it will still would have been too late.
Correct.
Okay, I see.
Is this too late on this particular one? Like, is it set in stone on this? Flagstaff?
It's late. It's not built yet.
Okay.
But
Okay, because I'm just, I want
the
to,
design that we looked at last month is
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah,
because I'm just like, let's address, there's two separate issues. One, do we need to send a strongly worded letter about our concerns with this one? Two, how do we prevent this from happening again?
Yeah.
Right,
The
like,
more general scheduling
yeah,
issue of,
so, I mean, I
sure.
guess.
Or we can ask them to help too. Like they should know if they're doing this Fox Glen Hill, process, they could have let us know prior that this was coming in that part of the meeting and an email could have been sent to us prior to it. You see what I'm saying?
Martin, do you know when's the Transportation Commission like legally obliged to post their agenda? Because in my anecdotal experience, it's usually like the day before or the day of. But is there a legal requirement for city commissions about when you have to make your agenda public?
it's 24 hours.
Okay, so not enough time for us to do much then.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
That's the part that is public facing. Internally, we know what issues are coming up before that. So internally, we can help head off issues. But like in the case of this one, we couldn't because it was scheduled for October Transportation Commission. And we couldn't have scheduled on the September Bicycle Advisory Committee. There just wasn't enough. The timing works out. Things rarely have enough time built into them that we can stretch things over 2 months.
So we need to meet before the transportation committee. Yeah.
And it looks like we can possibly get that done at our next meeting when we schedule our 2025 meetings.
If we unofficially know their agenda, can that be like a little standing thing on our agenda of transportation committees stuff? So then if we're like, oh, I want to go to that one next week, we could do that.
We could certainly share
As best
their
we can.
agenda with the group.
Unofficial,
We, the BAC and the PAC share our agendas with them
yeah.
as regularly
Right.
when they get sent out.
In the minutes.
Yes, if they're part of the agenda, yeah.
I forget, was our discussion a part of our agenda, our meeting minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good.
It didn't go up with the agenda because I didn't have them done, so that might be a reason to have them not wait till after the agenda is sent to have the minutes done.
Yeah. It's just a larger issue, like sometimes it feels like the discussions kind of stop here. So if they can even just be more engaged or read our minutes or, because they're the ones that are reporting to council, we don't. So it's like, just making sure we're heard.
I think that's a good way to summarize it. I think we want to make sure that the issues don't, but if there are concerns that they get passed forward to the appropriate, whoever needs to hear them.
Not even concerns, just our brilliant, we have every single.
Whatever topic we wax and stuff.
Like, we just want them to be in awe.
All right, 6:01. See what we got. Anything else? Concluding remarks? Anybody? I know we didn't get to talk about the bikeways plans and we didn't have any general business either, but I thought it was a lively meeting. Anything else for the good of the order? Anybody?
So there were no takers on someone writing a strongly worded email about the Fox Glen that it's maybe too late?
Oh, right. That was an action item.
Yeah.
If you wanna,
I said action.
Sorry, I nominate Val.
I wasn't here at the last meeting,
Okay, that's
but I can read the minutes.
good. Who had the best idea about it?
Hey, Martin,
yes,
these meetings are recorded, right? How fast can you process the recordings?
they're recording, yes.
That's a good idea. Good call,
How
Sam.
quickly? Yeah, well, yeah, how fast can you process those recordings for either committee or public access?
They're usually done the morning after.
Cool. So if someone wanted to, for example, watch our spirited and brilliant debate, to write an email, they could do that.
Yes.
Okay. I will do that.
Walked into that one.
All in favor?
Thank you so much for taking it on.
Hey, if you start spinning wheels, you can shoot me your draft. I will totally jump in
Thank you.
on your draft.
Okay. I will write a strongly worded email.
I'll probably still do the action.
Vote?
Yeah.
I
I think, I don't know, do you have a motion in a second?
I motion myself to write an email.
I second.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it.
Would it be possible for you to share that strongly worded letter? So
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can send it out super rough. Well, we can flesh it out.
Okay. All on it.
Just you. She'll send it to you.
Okay.
Not to the, yeah, don't do it to the group.
Okay.
Because that.
But can we see it at a meeting?
You can see it at a meeting,
Okay,
yes, yeah.
And you can
Just-
see it all.
You just
I
can't,
want to be an
In
off.
the email.
if we like exchanged emails and wrote a letter, like we're conducting business, but not.
We would need to call a meeting to do that. Okay.
I just want to see a
Right.
beautiful example of
Yeah.
strongly worded.
Right. Yeah.
We don't need to do anything else, right?
Hold it for me.
Martin, go.
Uh,
What's best about
here's
it?
Paul.
You're making the buzz.
Okay, I'm calling the meeting. But thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Aye.
Consensus?
No, I'm walking. Yeah.
Who's the next? Robert.
It's not, it's like,
Can I do it again?
not even what, 2/10 of a mile? I don't even know. Not even like. I'm lost.
What direction are you going?
Unfiltered. It's a thing.
I have a card.
No, it's not a far one. It's being lazy.
It's always tricky because you have to leave enough time for, if there is a train.
Right, right.
You catch the bus too.
No, I'm just walking.
Oh,
I'm like south downtown. Yeah. All at 15 minutes long.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
I should.
Thanks for bringing that.
It's a good one. It's short, it's punchy, it's like, you know, very.
But the other interesting thing was like the judges found that even though the kid was going the wrong way on the sidewalk, that has nothing to do with it.
I know. No, I love it. It's very clear. And that's the thing is that the concurring,
So.
is that the concurring judge said, like, it would be really nice if municipalities came up with laws and